Happy Easter. It's Easter 2017. So Mary Magdalene and the other Mary. And the other Mary, we don't know who it is. But the way the Greek is set up, we don't believe that is Mary, Jesus' mother. So the two Marys go down and on their way to the tomb to see Jesus, something happens. And I don't know if you guys remember what happened on August 23rd, 2011 in the Delaware Valley. Yes, we had an earthquake. I remember in that earthquake. It was scary because I thought I was going to pass out twice because my equilibrium got knocked off. And I thought, wow, man, I must have worked out too hard. But when I found out it was an earthquake, it frightened me. It really frightened me. And here, these women go down to the tomb, and there's an earthquake. And they're frightened. And then they see an angel. An angel that took the rock off the tomb and is sitting there. And he is white as snow and is lit up and is radiant white light. And he says, Jesus is not here. Go look in there. He's not here. And they go and they look. And they start to think, maybe he is alive. And the angel tells them, go to Galilee. Tell the disciples. Go to the disciples, tell them to meet Jesus in Galilee. And they walked away and they were trembling and scared, but also had a joy. And Jesus comes up and appears to them before they get back to the disciples and says, greetings. And greetings is a salutation. Greetings is a hello. But it's also, in the Greek, means rejoice. And they got down on their knees. And they held Jesus' feet. And they rejoiced. And they worshipped Jesus as the risen God. And then they went, as Jesus told them, go to the disciples. Tell them to come to Galilee where I will see them. And the women did. And the women were the first apostles of the church. The church sometimes doesn't acknowledge the women or has pushed it under the carpet. But the women were the first apostles of the church. And women were a big part of the church, a big part of Jesus' ministry, as they were financial helpers to Jesus' ministry. Big financial helpers. And also, Mary Magdalene was one of Jesus' best disciples, if not the best disciple. And they go back and tell the disciples to go, as the first apostles, that Jesus is risen. And they go. And the disciples go into Galilee. And they're looking and they see the risen Christ. And some believe and some don't. And some are doubting. And then they come. And Jesus comes closer. And they all believe. They all see the risen Christ. And Jesus tells them in the Great Commission, go proclaim my name to all nations. I am risen. Because if we don't have the resurrection, we have nothing in Christianity. Christianity revolves around the resurrection. If not, our God would just be dead. But our God is not dead. Our God is the living God. And he told the disciples, go tell all the nations the resurrection. So today, we have to have a belief in the resurrection. Faith is something that you cannot see. It's not what you see, it's something you cannot see. The disciples saw something. They saw the risen Christ, but we can't see it. Also, the definition of faith is also a belief in something, but there's no proof. But today, I'm going to do my best to give you proof. And we're going to take a leap of faith together. And a leap of faith is something where you go from a space of opinion to a personal conviction, a firmly held belief that this truly happened. So we're going to take a leap of faith together. And what we consider to have a personal conviction, personal conviction of firm belief. understanding, a knowing that we know the risen Christ rose. So the first thing I want to talk about is the Wesleyan quadrilateral, which is four things: tradition, reason, experience, and scripture. And this is how I'm going to give you proof today as we take our leap of faith from going from an opinion state to go into a personal conviction of knowing that Jesus Christ resurrected. The first one, scripture. How many times did Jesus tell his disciples, I will die and on the third day I'll rise again? He told the Pharisees and those that were after him, this building will not have one stone left, but on the third day it'll be risen up. It will rise. And he says in chapter 26, 32 of Matthew, 26, 31 and 32, he says, the shepherd will leave, and the sheep will scatter, but they will meet the shepherd in Galilee. What he's talking about here is that he's going to be crucified, and they're going to scatter to prevent being persecuted. Judas is going to betray him. Peter's going to deny him 3 times, and they're going to be scattered. And they're going to come and meet him in Galilee. And this happens as we get to the Great Commission in Matthew 28. It happens through Scripture and through reason. We can understand that there is proof of Jesus' resurrection. But also our experience. We can experience through our experience. We have an experience of personal relationship with God, with Jesus Christ. And our personal experience, he understands us as humans. We say, our God, our Jesus, understands our feelings, our sins, what we're going through, our sufferings. This is a relationship that's personal, that is a human relationship with our God. He must have been here before as a human to know me as a human. And he was, through our experience and our reason. Jesus Christ was here and has a personal relationship with us. As he was here through the incarnation. God was here through the incarnation, through Jesus Christ. And that's our experience and our reason. But the biggest thing I'm going to get you to a personal conviction state, a space of personal conviction, of knowing, is tradition. Now, Christians were heavily persecuted. First, Nero had a fire. There was a fire, he blamed it on Christians. Christians were heavily persecuted, killed, and tormented. And this fish was a symbol of where Christians could feel they were safe and that they would know they were gathered and not to be persecuted. So when they would see a fish on the door, or they would see, it's not blue like this, but it would be a fish, or one drawn in the sand or by rocks, they knew they were people gathering to congregate together for Jesus Christ as they were persecuted. But the biggest thing in tradition to give proof is the martyrdom. Saint Stephen was martyred, the first martyr. And he was stoned to death. And guess who was there as he was stoned to death? Paul. Saul, who became Paul. He may have not thrown any stones, but he was there. And Paul persecuted Christians until he saw something on the road to Damascus. If I can ever find this in the book. There we go. And he saw something. And when he saw Jesus, and Jesus said to him on the road to Damascus, why are you persecuting me? And Jesus blinded Paul. And Paul had to see something because Paul spread the gospel more than anybody spread the gospel. Through the Mediterranean and Asia Minor, all the way to Rome. He had to see something because he was beheaded in Rome. He had to see something. The disciples, Andrew, had to see something. He was executed on an X-shaped cross. Thomas was speared to death. Thomas the doubter was speared to death. James the Lesser Lesser because he was in Scripture less than the other James disciple. He was either beaten or stoned to death, but while he was there, he was doing something Christ-like. He was praying for them. And Bartholomew had to see something, because Bartholomew was flayed alive and then crucified. He had to know something. He had to see something. Be flayed alive and crucified. James the Greater, this is the only one in Scripture of the disciples. He was killed by a sword, and that's in the Scriptures. Matthew was slain with a halberd, which is both a spear and a battle axe. Peter was crucified upside down. Philip was crucified upside down. These men had to have seen something to go through this punishment. Thaddeus and Simon, reportedly, possibly, they were together through their martyrdom, and they were beheaded. All these men had to see something. They had to know something through our martyrdom. And Ignatius writes this. He's the bishop of Antioch. And he writes this about his martyrdom. And he's excited to be martyred. He knows that he's going to be fed to wild beasts for being a Christian. And he writes this. I write to all the churches. This is Ignatius to the Romans. I write to all the churches, and I bid all men know that of my free will I die for God. Unless you shall hinder me, I exhort you, do not be an unseasonable kindness to me. Let me be given to the wild beasts, for through them I can attain unto God. I am God's wheat, and I am ground by the teeth of wild beasts, and I may be found pure bread of Christ. Rather entice the wild beasts, that they may become my sepulchre, and may leave no part of my body behind, so that I may not, when I am fallen asleep, be a burdensome to anyone. Then shall I be truly a disciple of Jesus Christ, when the word shall not so much as see my body. Supplicate the Lord for me, that through these instruments I may be found a sacrifice to God. This is a bishop of Antioch, writing about how he's going to be fed to wild beasts. And he was fed and martyred to wild beasts. He had to know something through tradition. As Christians had to know something, as they were made a spectacle out of in the arenas, in the Colosseums. They had to fight off wild beasts like Ignatius. They had to fight off soldiers, and they were martyred. So through Scripture, reasoning with Scripture, through our experience, reasoning with experience, and through tradition, we can come to understand and take a leap of faith from a space of opinion to a space of personal conviction of knowing that Jesus Christ truly is the God of the living, that he resurrected as it is true. As Jesus appeared to the women, he said, greetings, meaning rejoice. We must be reminded of Paul's letter, Philippians 4:4. Rejoice in the Lord always. Again I say rejoice. He is risen. He is risen. He's the living Christ. Rejoice in the Lord always. Again I say rejoice. And we must go to that hymn as the risen Christ, as he lives. He lives, he lives. Salvation to impart. We have salvation because he lives. We have everlasting life because he rose from the grave. He lives, salvation to impart. Again, he lives, salvation to impart. You ask me how I know he lives. He lives within my heart. God bless and happy Easter.